This is the shore, and the waves keep crushing in.
Today on the show, Mr. Keith Kiefer, head of the Atomic Veteran Association USA. He had to keep 30 years of silence under a military and governmental oath before he was allowed to talk about the Anahuac nuclear cleanup project where he was involved. A test site where the USA 21 nuclear bombs, one of them 1,000 times stronger than the ones they dropped over Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The USA conducted their last nuclear test in 1992 in Nevada. So let's start the show. Where are you from, Mr. Kiefer?
Well, I live in the postal location is Zimmerman, Minnesota. I live in a township a little bit north of there, kind of halfway between Zimmerman and Princeton in Minnesota, USA. And I happen to be the national commander of the National Association of Atomic Veterans. So in our location, our corporate location is in Portland, Oregon. Many people don't know what when you talk about atomic veterans, they get the deer in the headlights look, and often you have to explain to them what that is. And depending on who you talk to, there's different definitions, but the National Association of Atomic Veterans has probably the most encompassing definition of atomic veteran, and that is a veteran that has been or had the potential to be exposed to ionization radiation. And as members, we also include those veterans that have been exposed to depleted uranium. There's the biggest group of the veterans is the veterans that were involved with nuclear testing from above ground nuclear testing from 1945 until 1963. There's a couple time frames outside after 1963 for that group. And then veterans that were involved with what's called broken arrow operations. That is an operation in which inadvertently nuclear bomb was dropped or accidentally dropped or deployed, and they were involved with the cleanup operation. A couple examples of that is there was one in North Carolina in which there was a couple nuclear bombs that were end up hitting the ground and broke open. There were some in Palomar, Spain.
The atomic tests in Nevada. Today on the show, Mr. Keith Kiefer, head of the Atomic Veteran Association USA. He had to keep 30 years of silence under a military and governmental oath before he was allowed to talk about the Anahuac nuclear cleanup project where he was involved in. Site where the USA dropped 21 nuclear bombs, one of them 1,000 times stronger than the ones they dropped over Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The USA conducted their last nuclear test in 1992 in Nevada. So let's start the show. Enjoy.
Well, the two biggest areas was Nevada test site. There was also what they called the Pacific Proving Ground, which included like the Marshall Islands. It included Johnson Island. It included Bikini. Several other islands in the Marshall Islands chain in the South Pacific. There were a few other areas where there had been some nuclear testing in Colorado and New Mexico and Alaska. I'm sure I'm leaving a few of the other states out, but the largest share of the nuclear testing was in the South Pacific or in Nevada.
Both
So,
so beautiful sights, no?
well, it's all a matter of perspective. I don't know that I necessarily consider Nevada a beautiful site. It's a lot of it tends to be kind of desert wise, but the Marshall Islands is a very beautiful place with the well, before they dropped the nuclear bombs, with the palm trees and a bluish green water and white sand. There were a number of situations where the fallout adversely affected people quite a bit. Probably one of the most historic ones was I believe it was I think Operation Crossroads with the I hope I'm getting my facts correct. Operation Crossroads with the Lucky Dragon, in which there were some fishermen on a Japanese boat that wound up getting exposed to radiation and to the fallout. In Enewetak Atoll, between 1945 and 1963, they had dropped 43 atomic bombs on the various islands there in the atoll, and a couple of islands were even vaporized and no longer exist.
In 1954, they dropped the Castle Bravo bomb that was 1,000 times stronger than the bombs they dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And there is still a wee bit comparable to places in Chernobyl.
In terms of the subsets of our association, we also have the Enewetak Atoll Radiological Cleanup Project veterans. Between the veterans and the civilians or contractors involved with it, there was a little over 8,000 people involved with that. I don't have a head count on the number of people exposed to depleted uranium. Probably the newest group that we consider as atomic veterans that are a lot of people don't know about is the numbers I'm getting is somewhere between 70 to approximately 100,000 veterans that were involved with humanitarian efforts from the Fukushima disaster, and the government acknowledges that they were exposed to, and I'm going to use air quotes, low dose radiation, low dose ionization radiation exposure.
Are you now, the atomic veterans are still not fully recognized and acknowledged by the VA, no?
That's correct. The VA only recognizes those that were POWs in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. They don't recognize the occupying forces after dropping the bombs. And then they recognize many of the individuals that were involved with the testing from 1945 to 1963, and a couple other small subgroups, but they do not recognize the individuals that were involved with the Broken Arrow operations. They do not recognize the Enewetak Atoll radiological cleanup veterans. They do recognize the low dose ionization radiation for the veterans involved with the Fukushima disaster. So we really have two organizations that provide any form of compensation, and it's very limited. One of them is the VA, and the other is the Justice Department. And the Justice Department has a much narrower definition of who qualifies for that program than the VA does, as far as atomic veterans.
Are you in contact with Goldfar veterans who are acknowledged?
They only recognize the veterans on a case-by-case basis related to exposure to depleted uranium. So they don't recognize all all of the veterans. They just evaluate that on a case by case basis.
Well, the U.S. acknowledged even the usage of depleted uranium munition in Kosovo, which Germany doesn't still.
Really? Okay. Okay.
When did you join the
That
Air
was
Force?
that was in 1975. I wound up getting went through boot camp, went through technical school, and then I worked a number of different places before going over to Inuiatak Atoll.
What places?
Let's see here. I went to boot camp in Austin, Texas at Lackland Air Force Base. I went for technical training at Keesler Air Force Base in just outside of Biloxi, Mississippi. From there, I went to Almendorf Air Force Base outside of Anchorage, Alaska. I went to Cape Newingham in Alaska, and also Catalina in Alaska. From there, I ended up going to Nellis Air Force Base, which is very close to the Nevada test site. And I worked on the peak crew there, which was going out on the test site range. And then I had some TDY, that stands for temporary duty, going to Grand Forks and Minot, North Dakota, and I was sent for 180 days to Inuiatak Atoll in the Marshall Islands, Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, and Wake Island in the South Pacific. So that's kind of most of the places that I spent any significant time at. My job title was ground radio repair, but my particular field, they had us do pretty much everything electronic wise repairing that you could think of. Like when I was over at Inuiatak, I was involved with repair of all the communications equipment, operation of them. I got loaned out a number of different times to the PBX, which is like the phone communications. And I got over to just about every island in the atoll. In Inuiatak Atoll, between 1945 and 1963, they had dropped 43 atomic bombs on the various islands there in the atoll. The radiation at Inuiatak Atoll is comparable with both the Chernobyl accident and the Fukushima accident.
But you were not involved in any radar activity.
Where I believe I got my exposure to radiation was from the soil being scraped up and resuspended, as well as our drinking water came out of the lagoon. There was two snorkels in the lagoon that were in close proximity to some of the dump sites for the radioactive material, and that was where our drinking water came from. And then also activities in the lagoon, activities on the other islands. When I was loaned out to the PBX, there were times that had to wind up digging trenches in the soil to wind up repair the cables and in some cases lay new cables. So, and then I was also involved with the various medevac. If somebody got hurt, I was involved with the communications and some of the operations of getting medical help and getting an aircraft in to airvac the individuals out.
The radiation of those islands was so big that the people who lived there had to be evacuated. And in the years even before you were allowed to break your oath, they got compensation money.
I didn't learn until after I had left that our mission really failed. That even after 3 years worth of scraping anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of radioactive soil and picking up various debris that was radioactive and transporting over to Ruined Island and depositing it into one of the craters from one of the bombs. That crater was 35 feet in diameter, 350 feet in diameter, and 35 feet deep. We ended up depositing about 110 cubic yards of radioactive soil and other debris into that, and then mixed radioactive soil with cement and put an 18-inch cement cap on top of that, and it's now that sits over top of Cactus Crater, and it's called Ruint Dome, RUINT Dome. And you can actually, if you go on Google Maps and look up Inuitak Atoll, if you zoom in and go around the various islands, you can actually see the dome. That's how significant it is, as well as you can see one of the other craters left that's in close proximity to Cactus Crater, where Ruined Dome is. That's just on the ocean side. You can see a much darker blue area where the a crater is left that makes the depth of water there when it's high tide much deeper.
When did you start to get ill?
I wound up, the first indication that I had any effects of it was after coming back, even though my wife and I were not using any contraceptives. My wife was not getting pregnant, and we started doing some tests, and that's when I found out technically I was sterile. Now, interesting enough, I was young and naive when they sent me over here, and didn't believe that my government would put me in harm's way without proper protective equipment. But I must have had in the back of my mind some kind of suspicions, because I had a sperm count weeks before I went over, which was normal. And after coming back, I was technically considered sterile. Then I went on and had a number of different situations that the doctors couldn't figure out, in which I had fevers that would come and go. I would have deep muscle and bone pain in my body. I ended up a while afterwards, I developed a number of different autoimmune diseases, which of course radiation will cause that. It'll compromise your immune system. I have peripheral neuropathy, which the typical people that typically have peripheral neuropathy are individuals that either have diabetes, which I do not. They're diabetic. I am not diabetic, or they have been had some kind of radiation or chemotherapy treatment for cancer, and I have not had either of those either. So I believe that the peripheral neuropathy I have is a direct result of radiation exposure. I have a clotting disorder that I believe is also it's an autoimmune disease, and I believe it's also related to radiation exposure. I have a thyroid problem, which if you look at the various how radiation affects the organs, your reproductive organs are the most sensitive to radiation. Second most sensitive organ in your body to radiation is the thyroid. and then it goes on. It goes on from there.
Well, I'm sorry. It looks like we're gonna have Olympic Games next year in Japan.
Yeah, that's kind of a risky thing with the radiation there. The Japanese government, I think, is really playing down the radiation risk from Fukushima. That's still quite a hot spot around there.
When did you leave the army?
I left the Air Force in 1978.
You learn in school about nuclear radiation.
The information I received about radiation was very little. Before I went over, they told me that I didn't have anything to worry about. I would not be receiving any more radiation than you would receive walking around the streets of New York or in Colorado or wearing a watch with a radium dial. Of course, the entire time that I was at Inuitak, I never had a radiation badge. I never had any masks or any protective equipment. Not even face shield. Didn't even have that for protective equipment over there. Most of the guys, when they were working, didn't even have shirts on, and they had cut off fatigue pants. They might have socks on, and they might have a pair of shoes on. Once in a great while, you might have an individual that might have booties over their shoes, and they might possibly have a dust mask, somewhat similar that what individuals are wearing right now with Corona, which is not. It wasn't even an N95 mask. So it wasn't adequate for protecting you from the dust that had plutonium. There's also cesium and strontium. Those were the three main radioactive elements that we wound up getting exposed to while we were over there.
There probably would have been people from the Air Force as well cleaning up the 9/11 incident.
No, I don't think. I think in the 9/11 incident, it was mainly police officers, firefighters, and a number of construction individuals. I don't know that there was any military personnel involved with the cleanup. They may have provided some security, possibly some security type aspects of it, but it was if there was any, it was very little. That was mainly civilian, civilian police officers, civilian firefighters, and other contractors involved with that.
In 1996, the US Congress repealed the Nuclear Radiation Secrecy Act, and you were allowed to talk. And in 2016, you spoke and held testimony in front of the Congress, and now you still don't get your medical bills paid or recognized with a medal. So what's the story at?
Well, I've been working with this organization for quite a few years, and there's a number of different things that we've been trying to get the government to recognize and or compensate the veterans for. That is to recognize the Inuitak Atoll veterans and the Palomar veterans as atomic veterans. That is to wind up extending those that are covered under the Justice Department's program called RECA, RECA. It stands for Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, and also expand those that are covered or recognized under the VA. We're also trying to get the veterans from 1945 to 63 recognized with a medal called the Atomic Veteran Service Medal. The veterans that were involved with these programs were under an oath of secrecy in which they could not talk about their experiences, even with their doctor or their immediate family, up until 1996 when that oath of secrecy was lifted. And many of the veterans still don't know that oath of secrecy was lifted. So many of the veterans suffered in silence under fear of being criminally and civilly prosecuted, possibly put in jail and have very high thousands of dollars in fines if they violated that oath of secrecy. We're also one of the other pieces of legislation that we're doing is getting July 16th recognized as Atomic Veterans Day, and the significance of that is that July 16th was when the first atomic bomb was dropped out in Alamogordo, New Mexico. So we're trying to get that recognized. We have several of the states that currently recognize it. We did have a resolution passed back under President Reagan. However, the language didn't state that to recognize it that particular year and every year here thereafter, and we're trying to get that rectified.
At the Anahuac Atoll, we're talking about plutonium with a half-life of 2,400 years.
Actually, depending on the isotope, some of them are like 24,000 years, I think. I mean, we're talking about a very, very long time, depending on which plutonium isotope you're talking about. Many generations.
When you started getting sick, did they tell you that you might have PTSD?
No, they in my particular case, they have never diagnosed me as having PTSD, but a number of the individuals that I worked with have been diagnosed as having PTSD.
I reckon from the health effect.
A number of different things. So psychological effects, the health effects. Many of the veterans, depending on what they were involved with, witnessed some pretty horrific things, and it's affected them psychologically. Many cases, many of the veterans have concerns about their own health, and also the health of their children. Many of the veterans that have been exposed to radiations, the effects of the radiation has been passed on to their children.
All those years while you were still under this oath of secrecy, you had to basically watch the world go by. There were incidents like Chernobyl, wars happening.
We weren't allowed to talk about any of our experiences with the testing or cleanup programs under I forget which section of the law it was, but we could be both criminally and civilly prosecuted and potentially put in prison and have thousands of dollars worth of fines levied against us if we violated that. That was up until 1996.
In 1983, in Germany, there were lots of protests against the deployment of Pershing missiles, and a soldier, his name was Erich Schemm, claimed that year that the Bundeswehr on his training base was firing uranium shells. That was in Bergen-Hohne, near Münster, and in 2007, the competent social court then dismissed his claim, and in 2011 he died of cancer. He was threatened by politicians.
That's not good.
Mm.
They certainly don't like it. They certainly don't like it when you talk about it.
Did the anti-atomic weapons treaty come to you? Were you involved in that, your organization?
We ended up supporting it. The U.S. was not one of the organizations that signed on to it. Neither was Russia. The United Kingdom didn't sign on to it. I'm not sure if Germany signed on to it or not. I couldn't tell you on that for sure.
Germany didn't sign on. We do have 20 atomic weapons in Germany on US bases.
Okay.
France owns 290 atomic weapons. Pakistan 160, Russia 6,372, the United Kingdom 195, Israel 90, China 320, India 150, and North Korea 35. Are you active in the anti-nuclear movement as well?
Our organization supports some of the various groups or some of the various activities on a case-by-case basis. We look at the various proposals or legislation or requirements, and our organization evaluates it and makes a decision as to whether we'll support it or not. We don't actively work against any of those, but there are some that we support their effort.
Which politicians did support you under the Trump administration?
I believe on one of our bills, the one for the Inuitak Atoll, we had I think it was like in excess of 250 congressmen supporting it, and I think it was like 10 senators supporting it. In terms of the medal, getting the medal for the atomic veterans, we had this last time they took a vote on it, we had 434 congressmen in favor of it, and they never took a vote on it in the Senate. So it varies from particular topic to topic in terms of how much support we have. We did this last legislative period in the U.S. We have what they call a congressional session, which lasts 2 years, and in that period of time, you can introduce bills. And if that bill is not passed within that 2-year period, you have to start all over again. So right now, this year here, we have to start over and get all of our bills reintroduced to be able to try and get them made into law. But last year, we wound up 2 small baby steps that we made. Was we were able to help or support the Marshallese individuals to be able to get covered by Medicaid. They under the Compact of Free Association, they used to be covered under Medicaid, but then under Bill Clinton, either accidentally or on purpose, they lost that benefit. And this year, in December, late December, we were able to help support and get past that they will have Medicare, Medicaid coverage again. And we also made a very small step towards getting medal recognition. One of the bills that was passed requires the Department of the Secretary of the Department of Defense to evaluate the feasibility of creating a medal to recognize the atomic veterans, and they have to include the National Association of Atomic Veterans in that study, get their input and have them involved with it. That's our organization, and they have to submit that report back to Congress by May of 2021 this year. So we're hopeful that we'll get a positive result out of that feasibility study, and that near the end of 2021 we'll be able to get legislation passed to get the medal for the veterans.
Did you become atomic scientist as
Me?
a hobby?
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it atomic scientist, but I have had to learn a lot about the physics and some of the other scientific aspects of the nuclear or atomic weapons, and also the physics or how it all works. I would say amateur scientist maybe.
So do you read the Atomic Scientist Bulletin
Yes.
of the Atomic Scientist?
Yes.
And are you on the U.S. radiation map?
Am I on the U.S. radiation map?
No, if you check it out from time to time.
Yeah, there are a number of different sites that I check out from time to time to keep up with what's going on and all. So we applied to be a consultant to the UN and are waiting to hear back on that. What's that?
When was this?
That was back, I believe, in early 2000. No, it was either late 2019 or early 2020 that we applied for that, and we're still waiting to hear back on our application. I understand it can take some time. We also work closely with a number of other organizations. We work with the French atomic veterans, the British atomic veterans, the New Zealand atomic veterans, the Australians, and the British atomic veterans. If we knew of any, we'd be working with the Canadians also, but there's very few Canadian atomic veterans.
Sound. So, and after Bill Clinton lifted your oath, did you get lots of media coverage?
No, unfortunately, both the when that oath of office or oath of secrecy was lifted, and the Atomic Veteran Day, they didn't get much media coverage. There were other things like the O.J. Simpson's trial that overshadowed the media on that.
Canada had so many big corporations do earn from a production of atomic bombs, like Airbus, Boeing, BPN, the University of Michigan. How do they do that? Is that just in science developing?
It's a number of different aspects of it. Development of of the various nuclear aspects, whether it's medicine or energy or defense. A lot of different organizations get involved with it. Back during the Manhattan Project, it's amazing the different areas that had were involved with it. One of the Ohio universities and a couple of the companies in Ohio were involved with parts of the triggering mechanism, and just a number of different organizations were involved with different aspects of that of the Manhattan Project.
What else do you do with your life?
I worked as a design engineer, as well as system safety engineer, and also consultant in various engineering aspects. Right now, I just do a little bit of work for individuals here and there. Whether they have need some help with electronics or need some help with some light mechanical work. I'm kind of semi retired right now, and the National Association of Atomic Veterans takes up a lot of my time. I'm also involved with an organization called International Bible Givers. They give away free Bibles to different organizations. I'm on a number of different boards of different nonprofits.
Well, the German church started their first anti-atomic marches in the 50s.
Really?
Do they that it's the peace movement of the Catholic Church? Is that existing as well? Is there money from is the Vatican spending money or a movement?
I'm not aware of any Catholic or Christian organizations that are specifically involved with that. So, but I would love to, if there is a German organization for atomic veterans, I'd love to get in touch with them and stay in touch with them. We're trying to build contacts in other countries, like Germany and China and Russia, that we don't have good contacts with at this point.
And Japan?
Yes, we'd be open to that.
The U.S. Army and Air Force. Does the Air Force? I mean, there's lots of submarines that.
Yep, there's aircraft carriers and subs all that are nuclear powered.
Lots of US submarines and airplanes are nuclear powered. Do you know if the soldiers currently are educated on wearing protective clothes at times?
I'm not in direct contact with what the current protocol or safety measures are that they're taking. I know when they first started out that they were not as good as they needed to be.
Have you ever been to Europe?
Yes, I've been over to England, I think 3 times. England / Wales 3 times with the British atomic veterans, and I've been over to France, I believe 2 times, maybe 3 times with the French atomic veterans. I designed various different electronics. Some of them were defense systems. Some were systems for automotive. Some were systems for rapid prototyping, and some of the systems were medical.
What medical things did you design?
I was involved with some of the pacemaker and infusion stuff, like a heart pacemaker.
Anti-nuclear treaty was that big on the media?
No. It was much bigger coverage and discussion on the various websites and Facebook pages, but in terms of the media here in the United States, there was I didn't see any mention of it.
Well,
They were more focused on things like trying to impeach the president and the some of the protesting and things of that nature, and the inauguration uh, Joe Biden. That's what they focused the media more on.
do you know a lot of Vietnam veterans?
I know a fair number of them. Yes.
Do you have?
I'm considered. I'm not. I was never in Vietnam, but I'm considered a Vietnam era veteran, even though I was not in Vietnam. They've got like 2 or 3 different classifications of Vietnam veterans. Those that were those that were in Vietnam, and those that served during the time of the Vietnam War. I was never in Vietnam. I'm just considered a Vietnam era because I was in the service as they were winding down the Vietnam era. So
Okay.
the veterans that are considered Vietnam era in the U.S. go up until June of 1975.
And were you aware by then about the effects of Agent Orange and the other?
I didn't learn about the effects of Agent Orange until after getting out of the service.
Have you ever been in? I guess you're airborne. Have you been an adrenaline junkie?
Oh, I wasn't into sports. Sports like most people.
Did you? Because it's the meanest. It's a really mean feeling if your body is fit and your brain is blank.
Oh yeah, we call that the deer in the headlights.
Okay.
You just kind of mesmerized by. I don't know if you've ever seen how a deer when the car headlights hit them, they just kind of freeze there and they're in a daze as to not knowing what to do.
Yeah, I feel more like a beheaded chicken. It's probably a good thought by nature, that because if you behead a chicken, they keep running.
Oh yes. Chicken noodle soup.
I did talk to you. Are you a lot of on social media? Do you know the Warfighter Association and the Warrior Foundation?
I know of the Warrior Project. I didn't recognize the other one you mentioned. I myself don't like Facebook. The only reason I'm on Facebook is for the atomic veterans. I tell most people is I didn't write on the bathroom wall when I was a child. Why would I do it as an adult? So I kind of like my privacy more. So I'm not on a lot of social media.
There's lots of veterans that now advocate fitness and health and work with the VA to prevent PTSD, and yeah, they're really active and fit and do have their businesses.
Yeah, I'm aware of a few different organizations that work with veterans with PTSD, but I know them more from other relationships than social media. So whether we're going to have our convention in August Tennessee. If we have that, you'd be welcome to come over for that. So, but right now we're still waiting for people to let us know whether if we have it in August, if they'll come, or if we need to wait. If we need to wait until next year.
I didn't see that on the Atomic Veteran website.
We put it in our newsletter. Mentioned it in the December of 2020 newsletter. But it's probably not on the website itself.
That you worked, the VA spends now money with universities and like museums.
We have done some limited work with some of the museums. Talking about the National Association of Atomic Veterans, yes.
Okay.
Kind of public speaking, if they have a history class or a sociology class or something of that nature, we'll go and speak to the classes.
But not Fox News.
No, we haven't been able to penetrate Fox News. So we've gotten interest from like New York Times and the Post and LA Times and a number of other organizations like that. So, but not Fox, not Fox News. So we've worked with probably the one museum that we've worked with the most is a World War II museum out of New Orleans. And there we're working with an individual who is capturing various stories from the oral histories from the various atomic veterans.
And the German VA.
Sounds good. I'll have to do that.
Yeah. To paint abstract, but I guess Mr. Kiefer, I don't see.
I do. Okay, just a minute here. Let me see.
This is ridiculously pretty.
Yeah. We like it. It's kind of like camping out in the house.
Yeah.
So, well, I probably better let you go there. You're welcome to reach out again if you have more questions. Okay.
Okay. Start your Instagram and I send you some links.